I did a video a few days ago about growing up autistic and the problems that you have when you don't even know what autism is, let alone that you have it. No idea what Asperger syndrome was, but there you are. Have it, you're born that way, and you live and die that way, and it's part of your life. So what are some of the difficulties that I faced as a childhood? Well, we talked about that in a different video, but now I want to focus on just one aspect of that, which is no small thing because school is a big aspect. I mean, it's fairly significant. And every person I know or have encountered who has Asperger syndrome or high functioning autism has a school story. And, they could probably talk for 12 years or however long they went to school about the difficulties that they had. Okay, that's an exaggeration. But the point is, if you have autism or Asperger syndrome and you've had some school experiences that you think might be helpful to other people with Asperger syndrome, or maybe just kind of compare notes, that's why we have a comment section. So feel free to put down whatever you want while I'm talking. But the number one problem it seemed that I have, or had, I should say, when I went to school, and this lasted for, throughout my public school tenure, career, if you want to call it that, 12 years, and then a couple years at a private Christian school, college. The one thing that permeated all those years, what was it? I think I went to college rather 2-3 years. I went 3 years. Or was it 2.5 years? I don't know. I dropped out. But the one thing that permeated all those years, let's say 14 years, was the persistent anxiety. Not necessarily because it was school, but because being a person with Asperger syndrome, you are subjected, probably not the best choice of words, yeah, I think it is, you are subjected to social pressure. So I had anxiety. Now, that's not unusual for a kid who you send off to kindergarten nowadays, I guess it's preschool, or anytime you send a kid away from home if he's not used to it. Even summer camp can be a time of anxiety for some kids who are not accustomed to that. So I think that is kind of normal, but when it persists over a period of, well, in my case, well over a decade and a half, yeah, that's a problem. But it's always there. Now, what does that have to do with school? Because you have anxiety everywhere you go. Well, it should be kind of obvious when you go to school. The purpose of going to school is, well, you're supposed to be learning stuff, right? Well, anxiety is an impediment to education, to learning. So that presents in and of itself a difficulty. So just kind of think of this. You're a little kid, 4, 5, 6 years old, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. We go all the way up to 17. So you're a kid in school, and you've got this feeling of anxiety. You just don't belong there. And it goes on for the entire day, the whole time you're there. Hour after hour, day after day, year after year. That has got to have some severe effects on people. Post-traumatic stress syndrome, I would suppose, is the result of people with Asperger syndrome being subjected to or being forced to go to school. What are the options? The only option I know of is homeschool, and that is today. Back then, that really wasn't an option. I don't know anybody who homeschooled when I was growing up. I know my mom tried to teach me some things, but my mom was probably the best mother in the world, but one thing she was not was a good teacher. When it came to sitting you down with flashcards or whatever and trying to teach. Now, her lifestyle, she was a great teacher. Teaching you moral principles, she was a great teacher. Probably the absolute best. I could not have done any better. But when it came to academic style teaching, homeschooling would not have worked for me. It probably would have resolved the anxiety problem, at least for me. Probably would have caused it for my parents, but it would not have been a problem for me. I just wouldn't have learned anything. But I'm not sure I learned a whole lot in school. Well, I must have, because they kept passing me grade to grade to grade, so apparently I was learning something. Number two, and I don't know if this has anything to do with Asperger syndrome or not, because a lot of kids who are neurotypical get bored in school. But, yeah, there was something about school that they're just flat out boring. I mean, what was it in school that would not be boring? Now, if you are socially adaptable, then okay, that can take away a lot of the boring. If you have friends at school, or boredom rather, that can take away a lot of that boredom. But to me, just sitting there, just sitting there doing nothing. Now, I was not a very athletic kid, or if I was, I never learned to express it. I probably was a lot better than I acted because I just afraid to participate, because of that social anxiety thing. But so you gotta, we didn't have recess. We called it gym class, but it was effectively the same thing. Only you had a teacher yelling at you. So we would go to gym class, and there was the boredom and there was the anxiety. Boredom because you really couldn't participate. Anxiety because, you try to play kickball and you can't kick the ball. Try to play softball. Yes, I could hit the softball. I never got past first base, but I could hit the softball. And I think, again, if I had had a little bit more confidence, if I had friends that I felt comfortable playing with, I don't think I would have excelled. But I think I probably would have done a whole lot better. That takes us to number 3, which is attention deficit disorder. One thing I was not as a kid was hyperactive. I was just kind of quiet. And people would actually, sometimes teachers would actually notice, not just that I was quiet, but that I was very still. So maybe there's a thing called attention deficit hypoactivity disorder, where it's not that you're overactive, but that you're underactive. That you're just kind of lost in your own little world and you're not paying attention. And that seemed to be my fate in school. But obviously I did pay attention sometimes because, I did learn. I did pass my grades. I usually passed my tests, so I guess I was learning something. So I don't, looking back, I don't know how that happened. I guess I just kind of absorbed it. Number 4 is something that's we already touched on, and that is social rejection. And I got to say that when I was in school, and I've said this in other videos, that I really didn't have a lot of that physical bullying that other people with Asperger syndrome seem to have experienced excessively. I can't remember any point in time throughout my entire education that I had a lot of bullying. I can remember one time when some kid after school thought it'd be cute to pin me against the wall and put his hands around my neck, just being a jerk. And, what he didn't know, and I did know, my superpower, super secret, was I had a big brother who was not autistic. He was 5 years older, and I went home and I said, this kid grabbed me at school. What's wrong with him? So I didn't say those words, but my brother went out and found this kid on the street, and he had a few words with him. I don't think he hurt him, but he let him know that that was an option in the future. So the next day I went to school, and this kid was so nice. And he told me that my brother had talked to him. And he said that my brother told him that if he did that again, and this is an expression that my brother used often when I was a kid, he said he would punch him so hard in the mouth that his fist would get stuck in his throat. That's just something he said. I kind of tried to visually, mentally rather, envision that. Yeah, he could probably do it, because he was a big guy. I mean, he wasn't huge, but he was built well. So, yeah, we had social rejection with the bullying part. I didn't have a whole lot of that. Now, when I went to high school, I went to an inner city school that was known for its violence. This is back late 1960s, early 1970s, we had full-time police officers, and their beat was our school. Every day they'd get up, brush their teeth, shave, take a shower, and go to high school. And hang out with us. And there was a reason they were there because, the school was just that violent. I mean, it was just very common. Common to have fights in the cafeteria. And there were several times when the cafeteria just erupted in a riot. Literally. We get out of there. That was the school we went to. I remember walking off campus one day, can't remember what year it was, and I heard all the screaming behind me. And I turned around to see what was going on, and it was a riot. The kids were punching each other, all of them. Or some of them were trying not to get punched, but that's part of living in that type of an area and experiencing that. But, basically I knew how to stay away from the bad guys. I knew how to maneuver my way through the campus. Yeah, I learned that the first day. First day I went to school, I had a friend who was several years older than me. I think he was a senior that year, and I was a freshman. And some kid just come up, punched me in the head for no apparent reason, and my good buddy, kind of like my brother, let this guy have it. But I learned very quickly, I mean, like within the first few minutes, got to be careful who you hang out with, who you walk around, got my education. But as far as physical bullying, the only time that happened in high school it was just random. Somebody had a problem with impulse control, and they didn't pick on me because I had autism. They would attack me because I just happened to be within arm's length. They did that to everybody. Part of growing up in the or going to school in the inner city. Number 5 was just confusion. Because you really can't get at least I couldn't get a good handle on what was going on. This was a problem in, the entire school tenure, kindergarten all the way till I finally dropped out of college. And people say, why did you go to college? And the answer is, I don't know. You're just supposed to go to college, so I went to college, but I really wasn't academically prepared for it. And sometimes I thought, I must be kind of dumb, but then again, I did okay in school, but now that I'm an adult, nearly 70 years old, I was smart enough to start a business from scratch, never borrowed money to launch my business, and did very well. Didn't become extremely wealthy, but I did fairly well. Provided an income for my family to live on for a period of, 20, 30 years, however long I was in business, and finally retired, so all is well. So I guess I'm not terribly stupid, at least I can pull off that. But when it comes to academics, that intelligence, whatever little bit I have, it was very difficult for me to apply that in an academic setting. And I think the reason for that is because schools are designed for one size fits all. What size is that? Well, whoever designs the curriculum, whoever designs the school structure, the education structure, the academic structure, typically they would design it, I guess, for themselves because that's how they learn, so it just makes sense. This is how we learn, so this is the way we're going to structure things. Well, one size doesn't fit all. And those of us with Asperger syndrome, some of us excel extremely well in school. I was now one of those. So going to school for me was just very confusing. It's kind of hard to, I didn't know what was going on. And a lot of that, again, was the social thing. But I had no idea why. I did not know why because I didn't know what autism was. I never heard of Asperger syndrome as a kid. And, I don't know anybody who did. I didn't know what high-functioning autism was. Totally foreign to me. So I was just confused. But I think probably the most difficult challenges that I faced in my school years was probably college. Because you go to a Christian college and you're expecting people to behave like Christians. And the thing I've noticed about church people is, let me phrase it this way. The problem with religious people is not that they're religious, it's that they're people. And they call themselves religious or whatever they want to tag themselves with. And it seems to make no difference whatsoever. They're still just people. And if you're expecting something different, and you shouldn't put the blame on me, but if you're expecting something different, you're going to be very disappointed. So anyhow, confusion. But the most difficult, challenging part of my education was going to college. Probably never should have gone, but had I gone into the workforce instead, I would have had the same problem. So I don't think it's really college. I think it's just the problem is me. The problem was the Asperger syndrome and not being able to adjust to my surroundings, or they not being adjusted to me, or probably both. Number 6, being misunderstood. Now this was a real problem in school. I mean, it's a big problem everywhere. But when you have Asperger syndrome, people misread you. I've talked about this in other videos. I like to call it mislabeling or misdiagnosing because these people notice there's something different about you. They noticed there was something different about me. Now, I'm talking about teachers, not just students, but teachers, in particular, people in authority. They notice there's something different about you, and they have no idea what it is, but they think they do. And they think, well, this guy just needs to loosen up, or maybe he's not being taught right, or maybe he's just trying to stay out of trouble by not communicating with anybody ever, almost. Maybe, and whatever pops in their head, that is the diagnosis. And now the problem is when they try to prescribe not a cure. Yeah, sometimes they would try to prescribe a cure. And I recall one time, I mentioned this in a video just a couple of days ago, but I recall when I was in college, we'd travel around with a singing group, and I guess we were trying to reach the world for Jesus or something, but we'd travel around. A lot of times we'd sing in public schools, or we'd perform in public schools. And one time the leader came up to me, and he made it very clear that he didn't use these terms, but he said I wasn't animated enough on the platform, because I was a singer. And when I sang by myself, I thought it was very animated. I'd walk around and, try to engage the audience, whatever. But when you sang in a group, apparently I was stoic and wasn't moving, or facial expressions or whatever it was they thought I was supposed to do. So I thought to myself, you want animated? I give you animated. So I fell off the stage on purpose. He was not amused. I don't think anybody was amused. Well, I was amused. I thought it was funny, but apparently I was the only one. But, those are the types of things you have to encounter. People misunderstand you, so they want you, okay, you got to behave like this. Now, a video a while back I mentioned when I was in high school. Again, I was in a singing group, and it was kind of like a class. There were 8 of us, and we'd go out and perform. Different groups and organizations around the city would invite us to come and sing for them. And, we did pretty good. We had fun. We had arrangements, and it was, one of those groups. It was both a class and a great experience as a singing group. And I recall one of the instructors, who was a guy, I think he's like just out of college, in a skinny, tiny little thing. And he noticed, again, that I wasn't animated. That wasn't his term. So he wanted me to get up in class and just dance around. Do you remember me talking about this in the past? Yeah, he wanted me to get up and dance around. Are you serious? There's no way I'm doing that. That's silly. That's absurd. That's not me. I don't get up and dance around. But the point is, they misunderstood me. They noticed that I was different, that I was withdrawn was a word that I heard often, that I was maybe shy. Inhibited is another word, which is accurate, by the way. Probably, other than shy, I think all of those terms are applicable. And they were true. They were accurate. But it was because of Asperger syndrome or autism, and getting up and dancing around doesn't cure you of autism. Of course, I didn't know that. He didn't know that. Nobody knew that. They had this one-size-all-fits mentality. Number 7 is emotional abuse, and sometimes the teachers were just outright jerks. Now, this is not common at all, but it did happen now and again. They just did not understand, or it bothered them that you had all these kids. When I was in school, grade school, junior high, the class size was either 30 or 31, just like the price of gasoline. Yeah, it was 31 cents back then. But that was the size of our class. I guess they did it on purpose. I don't know why, but I can't remember ever going to school grade school, junior high, when we didn't have 30 or 31 kids in the class. But there was this one kid that was really weird, and that was me. I just kind of stood out because I didn't stand out. I thought I was doing pretty good. All the other kids were troublemakers to a different degree. They'd talk out in class. We had some that were clowns. We had some that were bad guys, And, some of the girls were the same way, but not as intensely as the guys were. The girls typically didn't act like bad guys until I got to high school. But, there's one kid who was real quiet, reserved. Again, all those words we used earlier, withdrawn, all by himself. That bugged some of the teachers, just drove them absolutely crazy. What is wrong with you? And they would try to pull you out of your shell, so to speak. Well, as I said in another video, a turtle's in a shell, right? You don't get the turtle out of the shell because the shell is part of the turtle. The shell, the turtle, it's all part of the same living organism. Now, if you take that application and understand that the shell that you see people with Asperger syndrome in, That is who we are. That's part of us. That's part of our neurology. We didn't decide to be that way. There was no life experience that made us that way. That's just the way we came out of the womb, and that's the way we will go into the grave. That our shell is attached. You cannot detach it. You cannot pull us out of the shell. So, well, we need to so you can be adapted to society. Okay, cool. Take a turtle out of his shell so he can get along with the other animals. See how that works. Guess what? The shell is there for a purpose. And I think with people with autism syndrome, maybe we should ask this question. With Asperger syndrome, maybe the shell is there on purpose. Maybe nature has designed us this way so we can serve a function, and the fact that other people, neurotypical people, don't understand it, that's their problem. But that's what it was like going to school as an Aspie and not even knowing you're an Aspie. Okay, so again, what are your experiences? You want to share those with the other people who watch these videos? Comment section's a good place to do it. See those two rectangles on the screen? Let's keep on talking. If you want, just click one of those two rectangles. Otherwise, see y'all next time.